The Man Who Married a Robot. This is a story about a lonely, lonely man who lived on a lonely street, in a lonely house, in a lonely part of the world. But of course, he had the internet. The internet, as you know, was his friend. You could say his best friend. They would play with each other every day. They spent lots of time watching videos of humans doing all sorts of things, making improbable basketball shots, eating cinnamon, and sometimes they even watched humans having sex. He would use the internet to write to other people and tell them what was wrong with them and their life. One day, the man, whose name was @SnowflakeSmasher86, turned to his friend the internet and he said, "Internet, do you love me?" The internet looked at him and he said, "Yes, I love you very, 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 very much. I am your best friend. In fact, I love you so much, I never want us to be apart, ever again, ever." "I would like that," said the man. And so they embarked on a life together. Wherever the man went, he took his friend. The man and the internet went everywhere together, except, of course, the places that the internet cannot go. They went to the countryside. They went to the birthday parties of the children of some of his less important friends. Different countries. They even went to the moon. When the man got sad, his friend had so many clever ways to make him feel better. He would get him food from Chipotle in a dash, show him videos of cats playing piano, and show him the people having sex again. And he would always, always, always agree with the man. This was the man's favorite part. It made him very happy. The man trusted his friend so much. "I feel like I could tell you anything," he said on a particularly lonely day. You can tell me anything. I am your best friend. Anything you say to me will stay strictly between you and the internet." And so he did. The man shared everything with his friend, all his fears and desires, all his loves, past and present, all of the places he had been and was going, and the fancy food he ate on his fancy vacation. On his Twitter account, he posted the quote that he had come across. It said, "Get busy living or get busy dying." And then he died in his lonely house on a lonely street in that lonely part of the world. There was no funeral, but you can go on his Facebook. Whew. Well, we are living today in a very unique time in history, aren't we? We have this very unique relationship to our technology, to our tech, and specifically our mobile phones, that when they were first introduced in 2007, the iPhone, we couldn't have imagined where this relationship, where we would go with this tech. It's a very unique time in history. In fact, I just came across an article from Johnny Ives, chief designer of Apple. It was in Reader's Digest just a few days ago, and he says, "Hey, when we first launched the iPod or the iPhone, it was basically a glorified iPod. Like it played music, and you could text, and you could make phone calls on this device. And in that time frame, in 2007, we primarily referred to our tech, the relationship that we had to this phone, this mobile phone. We would refer to it as a device. It was a digital device. Do you remember that language? That's primarily the language. But over time, our relationship to this device has evolved, hasn't it? Just captured in that poem, that spoken word piece from the band 1975. It has really evolved and become personified to today. Johnny says that the language of today, the vernacular, it has gone not from just like a digital device, but actually a digital companion. Our digital device has been personified as a companion. This is the language we talk about. Our digital companion, our smartphone that travels with us everywhere. It really has become a digital companion. So much so that now our digital companion has a voice, right? It has a name. It talks to us. We can hear it speaking back to us. We have gone from device to companion, from digital to device to digital companion. And we are discovering that maybe this relationship to this digital device, this relationship as a digital companion, maybe this relationship isn't all good, right? We are in a very unique time in history. In fact, I want to give you just 3 fast examples of some conversations our culture is already having about this evolution of this relationship to this smartphone, and specifically looking at this relationship as a digital companion, maybe some ways that we didn't expect, maybe not all good. The first is a discussion called the Lost Phone Club. The Lost Phone Club. Cal Newport wrote a series of articles in the New York Times. And in these articles, he captures just this sort of movement. Some folks started on accident losing their phones, or their phones would be broken, or they'd drop them in the toilet or whatever. And all of a sudden, they were without their digital companion. And immediately they would discuss just anxiety and some stress and some real kind of like emotional undoing that would happen in losing their digital companion. But in the time that they waited for their new phone to get to them or whatever, they started reporting like, hey, as I've had some distance from this tool, this digital device, when it's sort of when I've defined my relationship, my proximity to this thing, I'm actually discovering joy and peace and some things that were sort of missing. And so Cal Newport writes a series of articles about this, and it turned actually into a challenge. You guys have heard of the ice bucket challenge and whatever. You may or may not have heard of this one, the Lost Phone Club challenge, which is a challenge to say, hey, go on a vacation and leave your phone at home. See what it does to you to leave it at home. And people say, well, how would I find, my VRBO? Like, how am I going to do that? And people would explain their anxiety at first, and eventually their tranquility, their peace that they found by redefining their relationship to this device, this phone. Another conversation that's been happening is within Gen Z. Now, Gen Z is categorized as born in 1997, which means the oldest person in Gen Z today would be about 22. And the conversation that's happening within Gen Z is the reality that this is the first generation who has grown up with cameras or digital phones their whole life, right? They grew up with somebody taking a photo of them on a smart device. And this generation's been told over and over again that this mobile device is your companion. It's a great thing to have with you at all times and all places. This is just the norm. But this generation is beginning to discuss like, hey, when I'm at a concert, it's kind of weird to watch the concert, a live concert through this little screen when I can watch it in full. This is the conversation Gen Z's having, or they'll say, I don't know if that makes sense, that placement of that. Or they might say, hey, as I'm taking a photo of a real person, I'm not sure that this digital companion is as important as the other person on the other side of that screen. This is the conversation of Gen Z. I'll give you one other conversation that we're having about our relationship to smartphones. It comes from college counselors across the United States. And starting 2007, college counselors noted that there was this spike, this unique spike starting immediately in 2007, this unique spike where counseling sessions went up 5 times across the United States in college campuses. And the spike in college sessions, counseling sessions, was specific to 2 areas, anxiety and depression. So across the board, regardless of which college counselors saw this spike, 5 times the amount of people coming in to discuss things and work out things with their college counselors, 5 times the amount of appointments, all around anxiety and depression. And as researchers started looking into it and trying to figure out correlations, they realized, this is the first generation of college kids to go away to school with a digital companion, with a smartphone. And there's some correlation there. It was the strongest correlation they could make. There's some correlation between this constant companion and things like anxiety and depression. Our relationship with our phone is doing something weird. Now, I want to pause. There's a bunch of you in tech, and I want to be clear what I did not say. I did not say your phone is bad. I did not say it's good. In fact, your phone is amoral. It's not good or bad, right? We know that our phones can be used to do incredible things. Just in the past years, people who had no voice, who were marginalized, who were misused, who were abused by power structures, they've found a voice through this. People connect overseas in beautiful ways. People have found educational tools that was never available to them before. There's beautiful things, and many of you are giving your life on this stuff, and it's incredible. We need you there. We need Christians in these workplaces doing good work. What I said was today we're not going to examine the phone, but we're going to examine our relationship to the phone. It's evolved. It's evolved from being a digital device to a digital companion. Are you tracking? You understand what I'm saying? That's what we're going to put under the microscope today. And I'm going to invite you to examine your relationship, not just people's relationship, but your relationship to this digital device. Now, sometimes when Christians hear these kinds of conversations, they go Amish, right? They say the idea is to run away and, ban all technology and get a flip phone, right? You go get a flip phone, and that's actually not the Jesus response that I think we're supposed to have. I think we're supposed to move and run towards the problem. And so today, I'm going to ask you this question. What does the Bible say about cell phones? And the answer is nothing. All right, that's been great, right? The closest I could find was something about Moses and 2 tablets. That's the closest thing I could find in the Bible. Now, there's nothing prescriptive that I can find specific about cell phones, but the Apostle Paul in the New Testament, he gives us this really cool grid. He gives us 4 principles when we approach things like our phone to consider our relationship to things that are amoral, not good or bad, okay? And I want to introduce these principles to you and empower them within you. So one, you can consider your own relationship, but so you can model it. Some of you in tech, to go back into these conversations with some robust faith, some faith girding you up, some biblical ideas of girding up the conversations that many of you are already having, okay? So these principles, we're calling them the 6, 8, 10 principles because they're found in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, chapter 8, and chapter 10. 4 principles about how we can approach a conversation about the relationship with our mobile device. We're calling them the 6, 8, 10 principles. It'll make it easy for you to remember where to find them. 1 Corinthians 6, 8, and 10. They're going to tease out 4 principles. And these are principles Paul has given us to help navigate or make wise choices about a relationship to our phones, our stuff. Okay? You ready? The first one is this. The first thing that Paul has us ask is, does this relationship to my phone, I'm going to fill it in a little bit, does this relationship to my phone help me? Does this help me? Paul says it this way in 1 Corinthians 6. Everything is permissible for me, but not everything is beneficial. Everything is permissible for me, but not everything is beneficial. And the question I think that we begin to ask ourselves is our relationship to our phone as this digital companion beneficial to our whole self? Is it beneficial to our whole self? You see, as Christians, we understand that we're not just flesh. We're not just DNA and bones and synapses firing. We believe that we're not simply just flesh and bones. We believe that we have a soul. We have a soul. In fact, in Genesis, this is the story of Genesis. God scoops up the dam, D-A-M, dam, and he makes Adam out of that, right? He scoops up the soil and he breathes his breath. We are both soil or flesh and spirit. We have a soul, and this has implications, religious implications, how we approach our stuff, our relationship with our phone. And the problem is when we embrace our phone as a digital companion, when we define our relationship with our phone as this constant digital companion, we invite constant, chronic distraction and stimulus. Constant, chronic distraction and stimulus, which is corrosive to our soul. The Pew Research Center said that right now, most of us, because of our relationship to our phone as a digital companion. Most of us spend about 4 hours a day on our digital device. We connect with our phones about every 12 minutes. Every 12 minutes, we're reaching for our phone to do something on it. 80% of people under 24 today sleep with their phones every night in their bed. 63 notifications a day ping us and invite us back into this relationship. 63. This is what research shows us. Hey, I'm here. Hey, I know you're doing that thing. Check this out. Hey, I know you're feeling a little down about your life, but check out this vacation, right? 63 a day. Bing, bong, bing, right? This is what the research is showing us. A friend of mine, Josh, spoke on this very topic at Harvard, and when he summed up all this research, he said that for many of us, our relationship to our phone looks a lot like this. You see what that is? That's Lady Gaga. Do you guys remember this? Me and my phone, inseparable, in the shallows. This was a Grammy moment that it was a cultural buzz. And for many of us, we have this sort of inseparable connection. 4 hours a day, 12 minutes every 12 minutes reaching for things. 80% of people sleeping with their phones. 63 notifications a day. Avoiding things like real soul work, like addressing pain and disappointment. Addressing our soul condition. Avoiding ourselves. One researcher said that our brain basically has two bathtubs. It has a short-term memory and a long-term memory. And every night, our short-term memory bathtub that fills up all day long with all kinds of cool stuff, it will take a tiny amount of memories and put it in our other bathtub, our long-term memory. We have two bathtubs. At the end of the night, all the short-term memory gets flushed, and only a little bit gets put over in the other bathtub. And what's happening when we're not doing deep soul work, contemplation, meditation, when we're constantly chronically distracted and pinged and notified and numbed out, what we're discovering is that that NyQuil cup of memories never makes its way into our long-term memory. We are literally losing ourselves. Thomas More says it this way: the great malady of the 20th century, implicated in all our problems, individually and socially, is the loss of the soul. When the soul is neglected, it doesn't just go away. It appears symptomatically in obsessions, addictions, violence, and loss of meaning. Our temptation is to isolate the symptoms and try to eradicate them one by one. But the root problem is that we have lost our wisdom about the soul, even our interest in it. Fulfilling work, rewarding relationships, personal power, and relief from symptoms, these are all gifts of the soul. They are particularly elusive in our time because functionally we do not believe in the soul and therefore give it no place in our hierarchy of values. Solitude is the landscape of the soul. We have come to know the soul only in its complaints, when it stirs, disturbed by neglect and abuse, and it causes us to feel its pain. I think if the Apostle Paul was with us today, in just our normal layman's terms, this is the question he'd get out of this first principle. He'd ask you this. He'd ask me this. Is your current relationship with your phone crowding out silence, solitude, and contemplation? Is your current relationship with your phone crowding out silence, necessary solitude, necessary contemplation, the oxygen of the soul? Is it crowding it out? Is it disrupting it? I want you to just ponder that for a minute. Notice it. We'll get to some application later, but just notice and just hold that. The second principle that I think the Apostle Paul introduces us is actually in 1 Corinthians 10. We just looked at, does it help me? And now we're going to look at the second one. Does this relationship to my phone hurt me? Does this hurt me? He writes, everything is permissible for me, but I will not be mastered by anything. Everything is permissible for me, but I will not be mastered by anything. And this is Exodus language. This is the idea that God has powerfully moved on our behalf, demonstrated his love, and he has rescued us out of any cruel tyrants, any pharaohs, any things in our lives that would dominate us and chain us up and cause us to be in slavery. He's removed that from us, and he's put us in a place of freedom. And there's nothing that we want to do in our lives to get back to that place. We will avoid it at all costs. Why? Because we are made for freedom. We're made for freedom. We're made to be free. And social scientists are referring to our current relationship to our phones not as free. They're actually calling it a mild behavioral addiction. A minor behavioral addiction. Now, minor doesn't mean it's not that bad. It just means that it's not as chemically complicated as opioids. That is a weird word for me to say this morning. More coffee, please. Opioids, or coffee, or alcohol, or whatever else. Okay, the behavioral addiction is more like eating Pringles, right? Once you pop the top, you can't stop, right? And the research shows us that our digital companions are actually exerting more behavior over us than we'd like to admit. They're exerting more influence. I like to think I'm the king of my castle, right? You might be the queen of your castle, queen of our castle. Like, no, it's just a device. I'm a mature adult, but the research is not showing it. It's saying, no, there's all kinds of weird things, involuntary things you do that your phone is influencing on you. In fact, 1 out of every 4 traffic accidents that happen today is because of people's addiction to their phone. 1 out of every 4 traffic accidents. This is a real thing for me. I was, prepping for this message. I didn't like what I discovered. Every time I hit a red light, I don't know why, I'd be stopped at the light and I would just grab my phone. I'd start checking stuff for no reason. I wasn't in control of this. It was like a real thing for me, a real tick or a real kind of influence over me. And I want to say this in this room before some of you say, well, this is such a young person thing. I want to introduce to you this 67-year-old New Jersey woman who was walking down the street, glued to her phone, and she actually made national news when her addiction caused her to fall right into a manhole. 67 years old. This is an us thing. This is an us thing. Behavioral addiction to our phones because of them being our digital companions is an us thing. Can you imagine? It would never happen to you, right? Never would happen to me. I'm in control. You're in control. Let me ask you this question. Is your current relationship with your phone more addictive and or controlling of your behavior than you'd like? Do you ever find yourself there sort of involuntarily on accident, didn't think about it? Just think for a moment. Again, just notice. Is your relationship with your phone more addictive or controlling of your behavior than you'd like? Just notice. I'm going to introduce 2 more principles to you. The third we looked at, does this help me? Does it hurt me? We're going to look at ones that are specific to others. Okay, so the first one is, does this relationship to my phone help others? Does this help others? Paul in 1 Corinthians 8 says, everything is permissible, but not everything is constructive. Not everything builds up. No one should seek his own good, but also the good of others. Okay, this is the idea that we're made for deep work. Again, a Genesis concept that we have been designed in the image of God to think beautiful thoughts, to create beautiful art, to look at and see beautiful opportunities, to solve real problems. We are made for deep work. In Ephesians 2:10, it says, you are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, deep work, which God has prepared in advance. There's things for you, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or dad or grandparent, a CEO, anywhere you find yourself on the spectrum, there's things that God has designed for you and your life to step into. Good work, deep work. And what Cal Newport shows us in his book called Deep Work is that a majority of us, because of our relationship to our devices, we are being pulled into shallow work, just answering email after email, responding to ping after ping. And those are important things, but behind them should be some deep work, some beautiful, challenging, visionary things for you in your life. As you dream about your family, as you dream about your relationships, as you dream about your health goals, as you dream about the problems and opportunities in your business. But when we're constantly distracted and pinged and feeding our brains sort of this shallow work only diet, what's happening is our brains are being rewired. We're no longer sitting in these sacred spaces of boredom where we can think deep thoughts and write thoughtful things and solve thoughtful things. We're moving from being people who contribute or create to people who simply consume. And Cal Newport says, hey, maybe we should rethink our relationship to this. Maybe we should rethink about the purpose of why we work. We don't simply work just for the whirlwind. We all have things we have to do. There's all of us have shallow work we have to do. That's part of being on this earth. But behind all of that shallow work are always opportunities and chances to think big, deep, beautiful thoughts. So here's the question I think Paul would ask you and me. Hey, is your current relationship with your phone distracting you from doing your best creative work or thinking deep thoughts? Is your current relationship with your phone distracting you from doing your best creative work and or thinking deep thoughts? And again, just take a second and notice. The last thing that Paul offers us as a principle for the purpose of this conversation is he asks, not only does it help others, but does it hurt others? Does it hurt others? Therefore, if what I eat causes my brother to fall into sin, I will never eat meat again, Paul says, so that I will not cause him to fall. 1 Corinthians 8. Therefore, if what I eat causes my brother to sin, I'll never eat it again, so that I will not cause him to fall. Now, this is a first century context about meat, and meat meat is amoral. It's not good or bad, but in Paul's context, meat was being put in between people, and it was causing disunity and discord. And rather than connection and health and community, it was actually divisive. And this is the idea for us. If something we put in between us is breaking down community, we really got to look at it seriously. Okay? Because why? We're made for connection. We are made for connection. We're designed to live in community. And if anything gets in the way between us and breaks connection, we're supposed to get rid of it. I want you to take a look at this picture. Somebody sent it to me from the community here. And I want you to think of it in the context that Paul's talking. Anything that's put between us that breaks down community, causes disharmony, disunity, sin, brokenness in relationship. Maybe we need to get rid of the way we're relating to that thing. This is called phubbing. You saw the title there, phubbing. It's snubbing on your phone. So they created those two words, and it's phubbing. And this is a real phenomenon that's destroying community. It's breaking down real relationships. Why? Because all the social scientists will tell you that eye contact is so important to a relationship. Staring at people in the eye, right? We know that nonverbal communication, what we see in people's faces, what they communicate back, it's all a gateway through the eye. A sense of security, a sense of value and worth is all done, exchanged through the eye. Diane Sawyer did a report just a few weeks ago, a special report called Screen Time, and they ran two independent tests. Social scientists did the first test where they asked moms with toddlers to come in and to play in this little environment, this kind of environment where they could film the interaction between the mom and the toddler. And they asked the mom to get on her screen and to phub her kid for 2 minutes. To be completely glued to the screen and nothing else, and film it and watch what would happen. And to a T, these kids would say like, whoa, something just changed between me and my mom. I don't feel as secure. I feel kind of funny. I thought this was about us. And the kid would start to, hey mom, like several were like really creative. It was pretty funny, like, hey mom, what's up? And then some would start to withdraw, but by the end of 2 minutes, they would all just kind of sit and just wait. Because a toddler can pick up on this disconnection, this thing that has somehow come between us. Another study that was done was of job recruiters. They hired actors to come in to a job recruiter and sit down with the job recruiter. And in the case A, the person would not have their phone anywhere near them. And all the job recruiters would say, this person's awesome, they're responsible, they're loyal, they're going to be great. And then the second group, they would bring their phone in to the conversation with the job recruiter. They might just look at it once and then put it down. And to a T, they said, not trustworthy. I wouldn't hire him. Same actor, just the phone. That's the only difference. Time magazine wrote an article that says, phubbing is hurting your relationships. It was in 2018. It says it threatens 4 fundamental needs: belongingness, self-esteem, meaningful existence, and control. People who are phubbed feel excluded and ostracized. There was actually 2 separate studies that found that, listen to this, when spouses phub each other, when they put this digital companion in between each other, they're more likely to experience depression and lower marital satisfaction. There's some real stuff here for us to consider. Question I think we should ask ourselves: is your current relationship with your cell phone stealing your attention from the most important people in your life? Is your current relationship with your cell phone stealing your attention from the most important people in your life? And I have to say, for me, this one's been really tough. I thought I was pretty good at this. And then prepping for this message, just the last couple weeks, we'll be in the car, and my wife Lindsay was driving, and so I'm over in the passenger seat, and the kids are in the back, and they're sharing with me about their day or something, and I don't even know I'm doing it. Involuntarily, I get on this thing, and I text somebody something I was thinking. And twice in the last week, my wife would just kind of lovingly reach over and grab my hand where my phone is and just cue me. And I'll tell you, before I did this research, I would have been like, I'm fine, leave me alone. I know I would have done that, but I was like, oh man, this is a real dynamic. Oh, you're shaking your head. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm good, no, it's for work, right? We have all these defensive responses to this. It's really important. I love our kids, right? I'm a good whatever. So my point is, we need to do some real work on this. We need to first notice, is my current relationship with my phone stealing attention from the most important people in my life? After Paul gives us these 4 principles, the 6, 8, 10 principles, is it helpful to me? Is it hurtful to me? Is it helpful to others? Is it hurtful to others? I want to leave you with some really practical next steps, okay? All the research basically says, hey, if you discover yes to any of those questions, like, yes, I'm not sure I'm doing the deep soul work I need to do. Yes, I want to do more creative work and be a contributor, not just a consumer all the time. Yes, I think I'm numbing out. Yes, I think maybe I'm harming some relationship. If that's all the research says, then do this digital detox. In fact, we put some resources in your notes about this. Cal Newport has a book called Deep Work, Digital Minimalism, Digital Detox. There's all this wonderful stuff out there, but basically it says, take all of it, remove all of it, and then meaningfully, thoughtfully put it back in one at a time. And I was talking with my friend Josh, who just recently gave a similar message about our relationship to our phone at Harvard Business School. And I was telling him, like, I'm going to just tell everybody to do this. Take a Sabbath from your phone 1 hour a day, 1 day a week, and 1 week out of the year. I'm going to tell him that. That's going to be the application. And he said, man, that's really good, but it's too far. And Josh instead said, this is what I've found to be really helpful, Andy. Invite people to this. This week, tonight, before sunset, delete one app for 1 week. One app that's causing you stress, that's distracting you from others, that's creating anxiety. The other one's beautiful and it's the end goal, but it's too big, right? This week I went to the dentist. Got my teeth cleaned, 6-month cleaning. And as I'm in there, what do they always ask? Are you flossing? Right? They always ask that question. Are you flossing? And it's like, why? Does it look like I'm not? And then it's like, like more specific questions because they know I'm lying. So it's like, well, when do you floss? Right? How often do you floss? What kind of floss? What socks were you wearing when you flossed? It gets really specific. And I'm finally like, I'm not doing it enough. And what Josh taught me, this friend of mine who gave this message and this clear application, he taught me that there's a behavioral specialist out of Stanford, and they actually did a flossing experiment where they tried to get people to floss all their teeth. And they discovered that if they asked people to floss all their teeth, people wouldn't do it. But if they asked them, just floss one tooth, almost all of them floss their whole mouth. And so I know for some of you, this feels very insignificant. You're like, man, I was all with you, but I'm not that seems so small. I'll tell you personally, I've deleted one app from my phone for 1 week, and it works. It radically begins to transform your relationship to this device. It goes back to being a helpful, amazing, beautiful, wonderful device and not your digital companion. Will you do this with me this week? I'm asking you as your pastor, do it with me. Before sunset, one app, delete one app from your phone for 1 week. One app from your phone tonight before you go to bed, just delete one app for 1 week. You might ask me, why am I doing it? And I want to show you a picture here of why I'm doing it. This is why I'm doing this. That's my daughter, Magnolia. She's about to go to junior high. Pray for me. Parents with older kids, pray for me, right? It's going to be a challenging season. A lot happens. That's my son Moses. He's a year younger. Junior high, high school, and then hopefully, presumably, they'll be going to college. I don't have much time with Magnolia and Moses. That's why I'm doing this. And that's my wife, Lindsay. And, I don't want to have just an okay marriage. I want to have a good marriage. And so for me, it's important to do this work, one app for 1 week, and begin to reorient my relationship. Baby steps, one tooth at a time, with a trajectory of reorienting myself towards this. And there's work that God wants to do in me. There's areas that he wants to heal. He wants me to grow, and he wants me to be better. So that's why I'm doing it. Let me ask you again. Tonight before sunset, would you delete one app for 1 week and just see what God would do? See what God might do, where he might meet you. See what comes alive. What conversations happen that haven't been able, just because there wasn't the space. Would you pray with me? God, I pray for my friends in the room, and I pray that this would be an amazing week of discovery in small ways, in large ways. God, make us aware. Give us eyes to see and to notice if this incredible tool has somehow slipped into this role as a digital companion. It's become personified. Help us to be aware of anything it's doing to our soul. And I just pray, God, that as we give you room, one app for 1 week, I just pray for great soul conversations. I pray for great rest and solitude. God, I pray for beautiful conversations with others, that we would kind of carry at a deeper level maybe some of their soul conversations. And then I pray finally for the folks in here who lead in tech spheres of influence. And I pray, God, that they wouldn't just know the right things, but God, that you would give them great wisdom to model and to lead us in a healthy orientation towards really cool stuff. God, I pray a blessing on them. Thank you, God, that this relationship to tech doesn't change how much you love us. If we do this one app for 1 week, you don't love us anymore, any less. But it is an opportunity, God, to allow our hearts to love you and to love others more. So help us in this journey. In Jesus' name, amen.